Shah. All praises to Yahweh in the name of His Son Yahweh Shah. Fisherman Vazaya, I'm back with another video through the spirit and the power of Yahweh Shem Shah. Don't count this as a light thing to do. All praises, glory, and honor to the Most High Yahweh in the name of His Son Yahweh Shah. Shabbat Shalom through the spirit and the power of Yahweh Shem Shah to those keeping the Shabbat, Friday, sundown, Saturday, sundown, Sabbath. Brother Hosea.
Brother Joel.
All praises to the Most High. Peace and blessings to you. Lord willing, you're enduring in these last days, striving to forsake the flesh and the cares of this word to the best of your ability. All praises to the Most High. I believe we titled this Shameful Sins, Heavy Burdens. Testimony on how I overcame a heavy porn addiction, plus the Day of Atonement. So Lord willing, for those that's following, their laws, statutes, commandments, Lord willing, they will be able to keep feast days and be able to follow things according to the law. Let me read this in Ephesians real quick. Ephesians. Get this in the book of Ephesians. I believe I'm on chapter 2. It's the book of Ephesians, chapter 2. Or it might be chapter 4. If I can't remember it, I'll just get this other precept. So like I'm gonna open up with this. This the book of Psalms. The precept escaped me, but through the spirit, this the book of Psalms, chapter 119. Because we all have things that we fell short of. We had sins that we fell short of. We had burdens that may be heavy on us. We have many things that may put a weight on us and feel like we can't move to the left side, we can't move to the right side. We all fall short according to, keeping the commandments in some shape or form. We all fall short as far as our thoughts. We all fall short as far as loving our brothers and our sisters, our neighbors, loving others around us. We all fall short as far as trying to get to the level and the highest expectation that we expect for ourselves. Now, this is Psalms 119, and I'm going to start at verse 133. And it reads, Psalms 119 and 133, it says, order my steps in thy word, and let not any iniquity have dominion over me. And so this is something we should be meditating on every day. We should be asking the Lord to order our steps, in his ways, because we may think we should be, making $30,000 a month. We may think we should be living in a bigger house or driving, a certain type of car. We may be thinking that we should be on a certain level that the Most High didn't call us to be on. That's why we should be praying. That's why we should be fasting, being aware of the times and the seasons that we're in. Because a lot of times you can find yourself thinking about things that other people may be saying. You may be thinking about things that may be on social media. You may be thinking about things that may be in a sports world. You may be thinking about things that may be on your job. And it may not even be lining up with the life God called you to have, the Most High. So one more time, Psalms 119 and 133. It says, order my steps in thy word, and let not any iniquity have dominion over me. So we don't want something to have dominion over us where it overtake us, it overthrow us. It controls us. As a man that's striving to be righteous, you shouldn't want a woman to control you and to have dominion over you. You shouldn't want your flesh to have dominion over you, and you shouldn't want your flesh to control you. You shouldn't want that. Especially if you are trying to better yourself, you're trying to get stronger in your faith. You should want your life to be patterned by things that the Most High said, things that the Bible is speaking volumes of. Set your mind, set your thoughts on things of above. Loving your neighbor as yourself. These are things we should be thinking about. Now let me get another verse. Psalms 141. And I'm going to start at verse 2. It says, let my prayer be set forth before thee as incense, and the lifting up of my hands as the evening sacrifice. Set a watch, O Lord, before my mouth. Keep the door of my lips. So we should be praying that the Lord, protect our mouth, not saying things that we ought not to say, And it goes down to read Psalms 141 and verse 4. It says, incline not my heart to any evil thing, to practice wicked works with men that work iniquity. So our minds can overthrow us as well. tell us many things that we, you know, aren't even equipped of doing. You know, your mom may tell you to kill yourself. You know, your mom may tell you to, you know, run your car off a cliff. Your mom may tell you to struck somebody and kill somebody. You know, we got people in the last days as Israelites thinking about committing suicide. You know, so you definitely got to be praying for that as well. Asking the Lord to protect your mindset, asking the Lord to protect your thoughts. So Psalms 141 and verse 4, it says, incline not my heart to any evil thing, to practice wicked works with men that work iniquity, and let me not eat of their dainties. You know, so you can very well look at somebody else in a high regard and start following their ways and their patterns. You know, because a lot of people got addictions. You know, a lot of people don't even realize it to the point where they OD, they're overdosed. You know, just because I have a certain weakness, it may not be somebody else's weakness. Just because I had a certain addiction, it may not be the same addiction somebody else got. So me exposing and glorifying and testifying on what the Most High has done for me, you know, they can open up many doors to somebody else saying, hey, you know what? I might have not had that problem, but I had this problem. You know, and one thing the Lord is looking for, he looks at confession. You know, he looks at how we open up our mouth, because one thing we're going to have to do, we're going to have to confess his son. Yeah, we're going to have to confess Yahweh's son, you know, amongst our loved ones, you know, amongst our children, if you got children, amongst your spouse, if you're married, you know. So that's a beautiful thing that you can do. You confess and say, look, hey, the Lord did this for me. The Lord did that for me. I remember when I was at my lowest point and I couldn't see my way, and the Lord opened up my eyes, you know. So like the title says, it says shameful sins, heavy burdens, testimony on how I overcame a heavy porn addiction. Plus, we're going to talk about the Day of Atonement as well. But here, pass it to the brother.
I'm going to start off with the classic in Romans chapter 1. we're going to start at verse 24. It says, wherefore, I'm going to start up actually. Verse 23. It says, and change the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man, and to birds and four-footed beasts, and creeping things. Wherefore the Most High also gave them up unto uncleanness through the lust of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves. So, you know, in this life, we face with many temptations of lust and distractions, and we often give into these distractions and temptations and lust so much to an extreme where the Most High he gives us over to that spirit, to that demon, to the point of where we do it and we can't survive without it. A lot of brothers and sisters struggle with porn or smoking weed or drinking.
Right.
And it's become so much of a stronghold on our lives that our bodies have naturally adapted to this vice or this spirit that we've given ourselves over into. And that's why when some people try to wean themselves from these demons, they damn near die.
Right.
You know, they have to go to the ER and figure out what's going on, and they tell them they damn near about to die through the spirit. And you know, and it's all through the spirit and power of the Most High. You know, reading on, it says, who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worship and serve the creature more than the creator. A lot of us serve our flesh, and when you can read about this in the scriptures, you serve your flesh so much that the flesh has become your God.
Right.
Rather than the one true God, the Almighty Yahweh, through the name of his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shah, who is blessed forever, reading on, who is blessed forever, amen. For this cause the Most High gave them up unto vile affections, for even the women did change their natural use into that which is against nature. Now a lot of our sisters don't even want to procreate anymore. What is the use of a man? You know, that's a lot of women say that now. What is the use of a man? I don't need no man.
Right.
And that's madness when you think about it, because that's contrary to, you basically telling the Most High God to hell with your creation from the beginning. And the Lord said that all things were perfect on the seventh day.
Yep.
Right? And he rested. So who are you to tell the Most High God that, nah, to hell with what you created, I'm going to do things my way. And a lot of people don't even look at things like that. For people that are lesbians and homosexuals and say that they believe in God, you're a hypocrite.
That's right.
That is absolute madness. You know? I'm going to rest right there, and I'm gonna get this quick precept in Matthew chapter 11. Because the Most High, and a lot of people are so deep into giving into these temptations and lusts and fleshly desires that they think that there's no way to be saved. Right? They don't think that they can overcome. Oh, I was born this way. No, the hell you wasn't. The Lord didn't put that spirit on you from the beginning. You faced a traumatic experience that caused your mind to alter to think you were that way, or to think you need to smoke weed, or to think you need to drink. When really all you have to do is put your trust in the Lord. A lot of people don't have faith. That's why the Lord Yahushua Mashiach said, shall he find faith on the earth in that day, right? And you could see it walking amongst people and having conversations when you're in the spirit of the Lord and being true and following these laws, statutes, and commandments. You can see that men really have no faith. Like, even men in the truth.
Right.
Like, you tell certain men in the truth certain things, and by the way they look at you or by the way that they respond, it'll show you how much they truly believe in this thing, man. Brothers will quote scriptures all damn day. And the brother tell you, brother, I'm struggling with this demon. And you get to tell them, hey, well, you got to trust in the Lord, brother. Got to go on a fast. Coming to the Lord, like you said, I'm about to read it through the spirit, actually. And this is what the Lord said. Right. It says, come unto me, Matthew 11:28, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. So, brother, that demon that you're battling, sister, that demon that you're battling, those thoughts that you're battling, that lust and temptation, when you feel like brothers be giving the temptation even when they bored.
Yep.
Or I'm going to watch some porn because I'm bored. Or I'm going to go smoke weed because I'm bored. I'm going to go smoke some weed because I'm hungry. You can't do nothing without the weed.
Madness.
You can't do nothing, sisters. You can't do nothing without the weed.
Madness.
Sisters, you playing with yourself and vibrating yourself until you ain't got no sensitivity left in your members.
Madness.
All jammed up. Now you can't even, men can't please you anymore. Because you desensitize yourself, man.
Demonic, man.
Yeah, man, this place is madness, man. But the Lord said, come unto me, all you that are heavy laden, man, and I will give you rest unto your souls. A lot of people ain't got no rest in this life, man. They're looking for all types of pleasure in this world. Right. And this world is so full of fake dopamine and fake peace that people just go out. I'm led to believe that there's Jakes out right now in the club searching for a high that they can't find or that they can't create within themselves and find that peace within themselves. Right. So they giving into that flesh. And the Lord said the wages of sin is death. So now you're remaining in the congregation of the dead. You wondering why the hell you up at 5 o'clock in the damn morning in the club, watching the sun come up, chasing after a damn a desire of a release of flesh and pleasure.
Getting shot at.
Yeah, man. Chasing after a damn high. A form of a high, which really ain't real. I'd rather be high off the Lord. Knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Because once you get a taste of this life that the Lord has given you, like he said in John 6:63, the words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. Once you get a taste of that high right there, it's hard to come down from that, man. It's hard to come down. Brothers be smiling when they hear the words of the Lord. It just brings rest unto your soul, man. Right. Me and this brother both can attest to many things that we experience in this life. Right. That without the Lord, we probably would have gave up, man. Brothers would have gave up, threw in the towel, said, I quit. So I can understand a brother in this life when he say he want to kill himself. Because this world is burdensome, man. Right. All the hell and high water that we experience as Israelite men.
Especially if you ain't got faith in Yahushua.
Yeah, man. You ain't got no faith in nothing. You ready to give up. And I ain't even gonna express the things that I've heard, in the past couple of weeks from Israelites, man. And it hurts me dearly to my soul to hear this from my own people, man. You know? But the Lord said, come unto me. And there's a lot of people that don't even believe in the Lord, man.
Right.
How the hell you don't believe in the Creator? Like, literally. But I'm going to rest right there, man, through the Spirit.
Yes.
I'm going to rest right there. I'm going to let you have it. I'm going to pass it back to you.
All praise to the Most High. Now, like the brother was saying, hey, some people, man, they just ain't got faith. They just ain't going to believe. They just ain't going to rely solely on what the Lord put in front of them. You know, they're not gonna rely on the scriptures. It's right there in front of their face. They can read it word for word. They can look at the letters and they can go to this book, this chapter, you know, this verse, but they're not gonna read it, man. They're not gonna read it and understand it. They may read it, but they may not understand it, or they may not want to. Now, this is Luke chapter 18 and verse 8, and this is what the Lord said in these what's gonna come in these last days, that He ain't really came in a sense for us to see him yet. You know, it will be a beautiful thing to have already seen Yahweh Shai in the flesh with our bodily eyes now. You know, but they may do something to you, man. Just imagine that if you see Yahweh Shai in the flesh, and then, you know, you just moving how you moving now. You know, that may do something to you. This is Luke chapter 18 and verse 8. It says, I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth. So one thing you're going to need to overcome these addictions, these demons, is having faith, man. You're going to need faith. You know, you're going to have some hope, you know, because if you ain't got no hope, you know, you're going to give up. You're going to say you're nothing, you know. You're going to say they was right. They told me I wasn't going to man up to nothing. They told me I wasn't going to be nothing. You know, I'm going to be the same old me. And one thing about this truth is that you got to change. You know, you got to become a new creature. You got to be born. You know, you got to be born in righteousness. So I'm going to read this real quick. Now, this is Joel real quick. I'm going to read the book of Joel. This is Joel chapter 2. And I'm going to start at verse 13. It says, and rend your heart. And I'm going to start at verse 12. Joel chapter 2 verse 12. It says, therefore also now said the Lord, turn ye even to me with all your heart, and with fasting, and with weeping, and with mourning. So this walk is about repentance. You know, we came into the truth dirty. So of course we not all going to be squeaky clean, you know, after a month, after 6 months. And then now a year went by, now you all clean, you know. That ain't even gonna happen to the man that's been in the truth 30 years. You know, we all gonna be some shape, form, fashion, you know, spotted with blemishes, you know. But the Lord is looking for that Israelite, that descendant of Jacob, that wants to change, that wants to get better. You know, he's looking at that individual to change their ways, to change their thought process, how they maneuver in this life. You know, he wants Israelites to have a guilt on them, saying, man, I was better than that. Why did I do that? You know, why was I stealing? You know, why was I so infatuated with stealing? Taking somebody's hard-earned money, you know, taking away from their kids, or wanting to kill somebody else. So, hey, addiction is something you just got to keep going after. You got to keep going after. You got to keep going after. You got a lot of Israelites, they just want to keep killing people. You know, they just like to talk about it. You know, I got 2 bodies. And then the person that had 2 bodies heard somebody got 4 bodies. So they want to get a couple more bodies. Then you heard one dude may say, well, you know, I knocked 20 women off. And another dude may heard, well, I knocked 40 women off. You know, or you might have a woman that say, you know, I slept with 30 men last year. I'm going to do 60 this year. You know, hey, some people just have a evil drive to just keep going and doing more wickedness and more wickedness. And a lot of people have that same mentality as far as gravitating towards wickedness. You know, I want to mess up another household. You got women that like to mess up households. I'm going to tell a lie on this man. Some people are addicted to lies. You know, some people are addicted to hating as many people they possibly can hate. Just because I have a certain weakness, like I said earlier, that don't mean somebody else got that same weakness. Another Israelite weakness may be a little different. You know, so the Lord said in Joel 2:12 again, it says, therefore also now, said the Lord, turn ye even to me with all your heart, and with fasting, and with weeping, and with mourning, and rend your heart and not your garments. So this is an inner thing. Before it can be an outer thing, it has to be inner. You have to work on yourself with inside, you know. But we be so quick to look at everybody else and start thinking, well, hey, I'm better than them. At least I ain't dealing with what they dealing with. You know, you might be like me. You might have a porn addiction. And then you might turn to somebody else and say, well, at least I wasn't addicted to crack. And then you try to simplify yourself. Now, this is what, I didn't write this down, but I thought about this through the Spirit. This is one thing that's wrong with Negroes, black people, so-called black people, Hispanic and Native American people. This is what's wrong with us. This is Proverbs chapter 1 and verse 22. It says, how long ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity? We're so simple to the fact that we're trying to find every obstacle, every avenue to justify ourselves. We'll say, well, it's not that bad, you know. Don't nobody know about it. Just because somebody don't know about it, that don't mean it's not bad. The Lord can expose you any day now. Any day. The Lord can expose me, you know, the good that I'm doing, even the bad that I'm doing. You know, the Lord can expose anybody. You know, the Lord exposed Ahab. The Lord exposed Jezebel in the Bible. You know, the Lord exposed many men, you know, and women in the scriptures. And he very well can do the same to us. Now, the Lord said, Proverbs 1 and 22, how long ye simple ones will ye love simplicity, and the scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. So the Lord is against those that hate knowledge. The Lord is against those that don't want to turn away from their addictions. The Lord is against those that don't want to atone for their sins. You know, he's counting the steps every day, you know, trimming you down. You know, he got angels out here waiting to be told who to go knock off or who to go raise up. You know, every day somebody's getting cut down, and every day somebody's rising up. You know, so let me get one more. Let me get Lamentations real quick. It's the book of Lamentations, chapter 3, and I'm gonna start at verse 34, and it reads. It says, I'm gonna start at verse 33. It says, for he doeth not afflict willingly, nor grieve the children of men. So the Most High don't just get off and just rub his hands together and say, yeah, you know, who can I stress out today? You know, who can I send the demons and the evil spirits on today? You know, it just told you he don't afflict willingly. It says, Lamentation 3 and 33, for he doeth not afflict willingly, nor grieve the children of men, to crush under his feet all the prisoners of the earth, to turn aside the right of a man before the face of the Most High, to subvert a man in his cause, the Lord approveth not. Who is he that said, and it cometh to pass, when the Lord commanded it not? Out of the mouth of the Most High proceeded not good and evil? Wherefore do a living man complain a man for the punishment of his sins? So we should be jammed up for something we do wrong. You know, you start idolizing, you know, you start making yourself feel good and pleasing yourself. The Lord, he gonna do some things to you. He gonna let you know who's in control. You know, he gonna let you know, hey, I'm the one that put blood in you, that put life in you. You know, a lot of people, they're too high and they think they better than the next man or the next woman. You know, you might got a certain status. You know, you might know a little something. The Most High, hey, you can't go too far and beyond, like the scriptures say. You can never far exceed, you know. So the Lord said, Lamentation 3 and 40, it says, let us search and try our ways and turn again to the Lord Yahweh. Let us lift up our heart with our hands unto Most High God in the heavens. So we need to lift up our minds to the point where we should be saying, well, you know what? You know, hey, the Lord can judge me any moment now. The Lord can judge me any day now. And one thing about me, you know, showing humility, you know, and exposing, because one thing about these spirits, you have to expose them. If you don't expose these spirits, they're going to overtake you and rule your life, because what is one thing these evil spirits don't like to be in? They don't like the light. The light is Yahweh Shah. You know, the light is the word. So one way I overcame is by exposing. You know, you can't be afraid to expose. A lot of people, they want to stay in the dark. You know, just like a weird animal. You know, certain animals we ain't never seen before. You know, because they just don't come out in the opening. You know, and one thing about these spirits, if you don't expose them, they gonna make themselves right at home. You know, when you think about bugs and creatures and vultures and all of these insects and creepy crawling things, you know, they know when footsteps come. You know, they hear sounds, you know, and that's the same way these spirits get down. You know, they don't like to have that word inside. They don't like that rawness around. So that's one thing you got to do. You got to expose that, and you got to bring that word out. You know. Now, before I pass it on, I'm gonna get this real quick. And man, so many precepts, but we're gonna get this in Deuteronomy real quick. This is Deuteronomy. I'm gonna just get one precept. This is Deuteronomy chapter 20, and I'm gonna start at verse 3. Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 3. It says, Deuteronomy 20:3. It says, I'm gonna start at verse 2. And it shall be when ye are come nigh unto the battle, that the priest shall approach and speak unto the people. Now we know, according to the so-called Old Testament and keeping the law, you know, we approaching a time period where, you know, the Messiah is about to come back on the earth pretty soon. You know, who is him that's going to make it a appearance on behalf of the elect and on behalf of what he had to do, shed his blood for certain iniquities and things like that. When you read Isaiah 53, and the grief that was on us was on him, you know. Matter of fact, I want to get there real quick. So this is Isaiah 53. So a lot of people, they don't like to open up their mouth. They don't like to confess. They like to hold on to that and like to hide behind it. And they just walk their life and walk this path of having faith and trusting in the Lord with shameness, you know, and heavy burdens and heavy sins on them. So this is Isaiah 53. It says, I'm going to start at verse 3. Isaiah 53:3. It says, he is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we hid as it were our faces from him. So when you dealing with guilt, you're dealing with all these burdens, you're going to try to hide. You know, just like if somebody was to be found guilty of committing murder, they might try to hide and try to prove that they're innocent. You know, it says with grief, and we hid as it were our faces from him. He was despised and we esteemed him not. Surely he had borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of Most High God, and afflicted. You know, and this is talking about Yahweh Shah on a deeper level. And also, you know, Israel being ashamed, hiding themselves from the Most High for their wrongs. So going back to Deuteronomy chapter 20 and verse 2. It says, and it shall be when you are come nigh unto the battle, that the priest shall approach and speak unto the people. And we deal with a battle, not a physical battle, but a spiritual battle. So when you read Ephesians, let me get this real quick. In Ephesians, you know, this is one thing you got to understand when you deal with heavy spirits that may tempt you to do wickedness. Now this is Ephesians chapter 6, and I'm going to start at verse 12. It says, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And Israelites, so-called Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans deal with a high level of principalities, wars, spiritual wars, you know. And so we have a high priest in the third heavens right now, you know, the Messiah. You know, he's the one that's going to approach this battle on behalf, like we used to do in the days of old, as we're reading about in Deuteronomy chapter 20. Deuteronomy 20:2 again, it says, and it shall be when ye are come nigh unto the battle. And this is a spiritual battle that we're talking about right now as the topic of discussion, shameful sins, heavy burdens, that the priest shall approach and speak unto the people. Verse 3, and shall say unto them, hear, O Israel, ye approach this day unto battle against your enemies. Now, what is your enemy? Now, in this context, of course, your enemy are the Philistines, you know, the Edomites, the Moabites, the Ammonites, you know, the Girgashites, in that context. But what is your number one enemy every day? You. When you look in the mirror, your number one enemy is yourself. Your flesh is your biggest enemy right now. If you can't overcome your flesh, how in the world are you going to overcome your other enemy? Which is the one that put you in chains and had yokes on your neck in the 1600s and the 1400s. You know, if you can't overcome your flesh, how you going to overcome this next battle that's coming? You know, Esau wreaking the havoc against the saints. You know, afflicting the church, persecuting the church. If you can't overcome your flesh, which is your number one enemy right now, outside of the other nations, how are you going to be able to stand in the day when Yahweh shall come back on the earth? According to 1 Peter 4:17, it says he judged the Israelites first. The so-called black, Hispanic, and Native American man, woman, and child are going to get judged first. You know, 2/3 going to be cut off, you know, and the only remaining is going to be the elect and the 1/3. You know, so in this context, of course, we know the other nations outside of the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are our enemies, but on the spiritual scale, your enemy is you and your flesh. It says, this day unto battle against your enemies, let not your hearts faint, fear not, and do not tremble, neither be ye terrible because of them. For the Lord Yahweh, your most high God, is he that goeth with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you. And the Lord is going to... This is what we should be meditating on. You know, Day of Atonement is approaching. Monday, the September the 29th at sundown, which we should all be keeping. You know, following along how the Most High commanded that we should be. Now, this is 2 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 5. It says, examine yourselves. And that's one thing that we got to understand. That's very important. You know, a lot of people don't even know they got cavities. You know, a lot of people don't even know they got certain things going on in their body. You know, how can you be so in tune with somebody else and not in tune with yourself? You know, we are a nation of people that be so quick to get on somebody else and don't even know what's wrong with us. You know, that's why the Lord, paraphrasing, you know, a parable, it says you take the beam out of your eye, you know, and know what you dealing with, know what you battling with, instead of getting on your brother. You know, can you get that precept for me, King? Take the beam out of your eye. That's in Matthew. You know, it may be Matthew 7 if I'm not mistaken. You know, we so quick to get on somebody else. You know, quick to tell somebody else they need to get right. You know, or brother, you might just need to get you another job. You know, when we not even good with our own finances. You know, maybe you need to stop dealing with that woman. When we dealing with too many things, you know, you find it. Go and bring it out, Baba Kishah.
The book of Matthew, chapter 7 and verse 3. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote of thine eye, out of thine eye, and behold, the beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite.
He said what?
Thou hypocrite. First cast the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote of thy brother's eye.
See that? So when we stop being hypocrites and start really living what we're saying, you know, then the Lord can kind of, you know, deal with us a little bit more. You know, we are a nation of hypocrites. You know, we say one thing and do a different thing. We do a different thing and say another thing. You know, the Lord don't like somebody that's a hypocrite, man. Neither do he like somebody that tell lies and bear false witness. You know, according to Proverbs 6 and verse 16 on down. You know, We quit to tell somebody. We quit to tell somebody else they gotta overcome. They gotta do this, do better. And the whole time we jamming ourselves up every day. You know, jamming ourselves up every day. You know, we get on any and everybody. Shalom, shalom, Shabbat shalom. We get on any and everybody, but we don't put that same pressure on ourselves. You know, and one thing that I had to do, I had to be hard on myself. You know, I couldn't look for nobody else being hard on me. I couldn't wait for nobody to say, well, brother, hey, if you don't stop that, if you don't cut that off, you're gonna get jammed up. Sometimes, hey, you just gotta be a leader, you know. And we were just reading, after we closed out of camp, we were just reading how King David had to literally go to the camp and encourage the whole camp when the Philistines and Goliath was coming before them. You know, they was out there 40 days. We just read that. You know, 1 Kings, the 17th chapter. You know, everybody was afraid, you know, but King David, after what the Lord done put in his spirit, you had Eliab, his brother, telling him to go back and tend to the sheep. You know, he said, who is this uncircumcised Philistine that's coming and speaking against, you know, the army of the Lord? You know, that's what you need to say. Who is this demon trying to overthrow you? Sometimes you got to talk to yourself. You got to speak to that spirit. Who is this porn demon that's trying to overthrow you, sift you out of the truth, take the crown of an election away from you? You know, who is this demon that's trying to take your election away that you are surely of? You know, because we should be making our election sure. But how can we make our election sure when we're holding on to addictions? You know, holding on something that we think is more powerful than the Most High. You know, you got people that's on heroin. You know, you got people that can't let that bottle go. You know, they say, I ain't gonna hold that bottle on the Sabbath. And then they go back, pick that bottle up on the Sabbath. You know, now they leaning over the whole Shabbat. You know, elders, you know, young women, young men. You know, you got somebody strung out on cigarettes. You know, they in the truth, got the cigarettes in the trunk. You know, running the house, trying to get some peppermint spray, trying to get some toothpaste, trying to get that cigarette smell off of them. You know, you can't hide from the Most High, man. A lot of people got addictions. You know, just because I had a porn addiction, that don't mean somebody else ain't got an addiction. You know, so reading this before we get this next precept and pass it. 2 Corinthians 13:5, it says, examine yourselves whether ye be in the faith. And that's what we just attest to earlier, like the brother said. A lot of people, they ain't got faith. It's just simple and plain as that. You know, they got more faith in their flesh than they do in their spirit. They got more faith that they can go to that store and buy that e-cig, man, that vape. You know, some people are just addicted to vape. They wake up, vape. Before they brush their teeth, they vape. Before they wash their face, they vape. Before they get some water, they vape. You know, before they even think about God, they vape. You know, before they even think about themselves, they vape. You know, people don't even love themselves anymore, man. You got people in these last days, they don't even care about their life anymore. They'll just run out in the middle of the road. They'll just put the car on drive and they just go. You know, don't care if it's running on E, don't care if it's gonna have them on the side of the road. You know, they'll just go to work and don't even care if they get jammed up in a machine. That's how you move when you put everything before the Most High. You don't care. You know, you don't care about your salvation. You don't care about your soul. You don't care about your brother beside you. You don't care if he get overthrown by the same demon you get overthrown. What I look like being overthrown by a wicked demon, and my brother beside me that spirit could hop on him. You know, when the Lord told us to love ourselves, love our brother as ourselves. You know, so many dynamics according to this topic, which we already knew. I already knew a lot of people weren't gonna be on the live stream. I already knew that. But that's just how it is when you deal with the Most High. You got to talk about stuff that a lot of people don't want to hear. You know, we already knew it wasn't going to be a lot of people over here. So we not worried about the views, you know, because a lot of people don't like to expose them spirits like we already attest to, you know. And so One thing about it, hey, you gotta expose that, you know. Now I had a precept, but I'm gonna get this real quick. Cause Paul, he didn't keep nothing back from the church. And a lot of Israelites, they gotta hear this, man. You know, whoever go back in this video and watch this video, cause this video gonna be up here until the Most High take it down. You know, whether he shut YouTube down or whatever the case is. It's gonna be up here, man. So just cause somebody ain't up here right now, or whoever may be up here right now, hey, the Lord may only allow this video to be for one person. You know, that's how the Most High move. We don't understand how the Most High move. You know, we understand what he allows to understand according to Deuteronomy 29:29. You know, secrets belong to him, but what he wants us to reveal, it belongs to us. Now, this is Acts chapter 20 and verse 18. And one thing about Apostle Paul, he didn't hold back from the church. What I look like holding back how I overcame something that was very heavy to me. What I look like holding back how I sought the Lord thrice, which could be a completed amount of time. What I look like holding back the scriptures, the precepts. Hey, brother, this is what you need. This is the prayer you need to pray. You know, these are the curses you need to put up. You know, these are the prayers you need to pray. This is the oil you need to use. You know, light this frankincense and light this myrrh. Put this oil over yourself and pray. Pray this time, pray this time, pray this time. You know, delete this app, delete that app, delete that app. This is what worked for me. I had faith, so you gotta have faith. If you ain't got no faith, brother, it ain't gonna work. But if you got faith, brother, it's gonna work. Sister, this is what you need to do. Okay, that demon in your house, okay, this is what you need to do. Read this. Okay, you need to go on a fast this day and this day and this day. You know, Paul, he didn't hold back, man. This is the book of Acts chapter 20 and verse 18. It says, and when they were come to him, he said unto them, ye know from the first day that I came into Asia, after what manner I have been with you at all seasons. Y'all see the videos, man. Over 400 videos on this channel. Y'all know how we get down. You know, we don't hold nothing back, man. We expose everything. You know, this ain't the first video on lust. This ain't the first video on addictions. You know, this ain't the first video talking about how these demons move. You know, so Paul said, hey, you know how I am. You know, when I'm with you, you know how I am. I'm not a hypocrite. Verse 19, Acts 20 and 19, it says, serving the Lord with all humility. And that's what we have to have as Israelites. You know, but you got some Israelites, they like to act like they ain't dealing with nothing, man. When you start moving like that, now we understand you can't tell any and everybody all your business. We're not saying be fools and walk around and telling everybody, yeah, man, you know, I got a drinking problem. Yeah, man, I got this and that. You know, that's why the Lord said, get Sirach 6 and 6 real quick. Let's get Sirach 6 and 6. That's why the Lord said this. Matter of fact, I'm going to read it real quick for time's sake. This is the book of Sirach, chapter 6 in the Apocrypha. Now, we always recommend if you don't got an Apocrypha, we never know who new to the channel. You got to go get your Apocrypha. You know, 16:11. You know, so this is Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, chapter 6 and verse 6. Now, we're not saying walk around and tell everybody about your addictions. Tell everybody about your problems. You know, hey, even if you're a husband, even if you're a wife, a spouse, you know, you may not be open and you may not be comfortable with telling your spouse about certain things. And one thing about me, before I came into the truth, I had a heavy porn spirit over me, a heavy addiction. And it came way of my upbringing as a child. It didn't just come about just because, let me scroll on the internet, let me see, I'm on the internet. No, it came because I didn't have a father in the house. So that's another reason. But it's no excuses. You know, I didn't have anybody to teach me anything. I found out how to use my body and what I needed to know to become a man. You know, all of that came about the internet. And so if you think the internet can't destroy your life, you need to be awakened. You know, some people use the internet overly excessive, overcharging, over-surfeiting. You have to know yourself and you have to be equipped to have discipline too. The same way me as a young child, the internet brought in new things in my life that I never heard of, I never seen, I never known of. That can happen to a grown man. That can happen to a grown woman, just as well as a little boy and a little girl, you know. So, hey, it didn't get checked. Nobody knew about it because I hid it. I didn't tell my mom until she found out, until she had to pay a $700 cable bill, you know. And it's funny now, but you can. This is real life stuff. This ain't for likes and views. This is real life stuff we talking about. You can ask my mom to this day why she couldn't get DirecTV. She had a $700 bill. If that's not addiction, I don't know what to tell you. You know, and I had to be like 14, you know, 13 maybe, because it was around before my stepdad came. It was around 12 and 13, somewhere around there, you know. It was so bad to the point where I ruined my mother's credit. You know, that's how bad it was. You know, and I was numb. That's me seeing my mother break down in tears and cry, that still didn't heal it. It got worse. You know, it got worse because it got worse 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So these demons will tear you up until you consume. So why not talk about it? What I look like calling myself an Israelite? What I look like calling myself a man of Yahweh, a man of Yahweh Shah, and not have sympathy on somebody else? Their life could be destroyed. You know, like my life was destroyed. And like the brother said earlier, I was numb. You know, you couldn't bring no woman around me to make me feel, because I done seen it all. You know, done seen it all. Who could heal that void? Who can fill that void? Hours as a child. Who could fill the void of you done seen it all? And some of the stuff you seen, it wasn't even real. But you thought it was real. You know? Who could fill that void? What woman? Where? What celebrity? It's not on earth. You know? So this is why the Lord says, Sirach 6:6. It says, be in peace with many, nevertheless, have but one counselor of 1,000. You know? But it came to a point where when I was fed up, I was ready to submit to the Most High. I was ready to let that thing go. It still didn't work though. You know, after all crying out, it still didn't leave me. You know, the Most High had to work on me. You know, the Most High had to do something with me. And what did he have to do? He had to use me as an example. And now I'm open and testifying, you know, and not ashamed to let you know that the Lord overcame, you know, used me to overcome all of that. So somebody else can hear this. So somebody else can be a witness. So somebody else can say, well, you know what? It's been 3 years. That brother dealt with that from that age to that age, you know. So that's why the Lord allowed Paul to have to go through hell. You know, Paul was addicted to jamming Israelites up. Go back and read Acts, the 6th, 7th, and 8th chapter. You know, Paul was addicted. For anybody that say Yahweh Shah, he was overthrowing them. You had to be infatuated with seeing somebody get jammed up. Look, go back and read and see what happened to Stephen. You know, Paul was around it. Paul seen that, and he said, "I didn't hold nothing back from the church." And we not holding nothing back. You know, it doesn't matter what people say about it, but that brother had a porn addiction. You know, whoop-de-doo. I didn't never have that. See, I told you about them Israelites. They got demons on them. That was in the old days. You know, we overcame, and now we still keeping our foot on these demons' necks, man. You know, so whatever else try to overthrow us next, hey, we equipped, we ready, we going to war. So Acts 20:19, serving the Lord with all humility of mind, and with many tears and temptations. So Paul just told you he had many tears and temptations. Sometimes you're gonna have to cry in this truth. You know, stop thinking you the most mightiest woman and man in this truth that know these scriptures and these breakdowns. You know, you might be able to teach, you might be able to help somebody get understanding, but if Paul say he had to have many tears, if he say he had many temptations, what's stopping you from glorifying the Most High too? You know, Acts 20:19, serving the Lord with all humility of mind and with many tears and temptations, which befell me by the lying in wait of the Jews, and how I kept back nothing that was profitable unto you. So this may be profitable unto somebody else. Why would I hold on to something that could be profitable to somebody else? I'm going to let you know how I overcame. I'm going to tell you, brother, it was hell or high water. That demon whooped my tail. But guess what? You can overcome it because I overcame it. You know? So he said, Acts 20:20, and how I kept back nothing that was profitable unto you, but have shewed you and have taught you publicly. Now, this is on public display. The book is open. Y'all know it. Brother Jose had a porn addiction. You know, oh my gosh. He would have been better off staying in the Christian church. It's in the public eye now. You know, it can be viewed by anybody. And have taught you publicly and from house to house, testifying both to the Jews and also to the Greeks, repentance toward Most High God and faith toward our Lord Yahweh Shah HaMashiach. So that's what you got to have. You got to turn back and you got to confess and you got to repent. But Khan, you got it, King.
Khan, I'm going to get a few precepts. I'm going to go back to Matthew chapter 11. We'll start at verse 29. It says, take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Now, the brother mentioned Paul and his burden, but through the Spirit, I had already had it down, so I'm going to touch on it. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 12, and start at verse 5. It says, of such a one will I glory, yet of myself I will not glory, but in mine infirmities. For though I would desire to glory, I shall not be a fool.
Right.
For I will say the truth, but now I forbear, lest any man should think of me above that which he seeth me to be, or that he heareth me, or that he heareth of me. And lest I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelations, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. So sometimes the Most High have to give you these infirmities and afflictions in order to keep men humble.
Right.
But that's contrary to men and women willingly giving into these evil spirits. You got brothers that's walking, brothers and sisters, young men and children, and walking or striving to walk in perfection. And then on the flip side of that, you have men and women that are constantly giving into these addictions. It's two sides of a different coin. Because you got men and women that are walking and striving for the Lord, and then you got men and women that are following Satan.
Right.
You have to determine which one you are in, and determine which one you want to be. You know, because the Lord will aid you in temptation, as it says in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 13. Whenever you're trying to serve Him and be perfect, the Lord told Daniel, He said that your prayers were heard when you first made up your mind to serve Him and keep His commandments. Your prayers will be heard and acknowledged by the Most High, and He will equip you with certain gifts and certain talents and certain powers to overcome that flesh. And through experience, you will gain knowledge. You know, going back to 2 Corinthians, it says, verse 7 again, it says, unless I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelations, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. Because a lot of men will gain certain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding and become prideful. And the Lord will have to humble you because you don't acknowledge Him.
Right.
A lot of men say, oh, I got this type of knowledge, or I got this school for this camp. And in order for a man to stay humble in this flesh, the Lord has to put you through certain things to keep you in remembrance, to always put Him first, to always acknowledge Him in all your ways. So brothers have to be mindful and also have to know yourself, whether you be of this fold or that fold. Me personally, I don't want to be of the fold that's constantly given into the flesh.
Right.
Because I too had experience, just like this brother here, a phase in life where porn was a stronghold in my life, you know, and a lot of men in this truth and outside of the truth won't admit to it. You know, men in the world kind of will say that they, you know, they will, but the brothers in the truth, I can understand why, because we're supposed to be men of God, giving into to the lust, looking at women strangely, and making
fantasy.
Yeah, fantasies in your head, man. And it's all through the spiritual demon Satan.
Right.
You know, fantasizing. Women do it too, just as bad.
Just as bad.
You know, if not worse. Fantasizing, oh, this man tall and he got all the muscles and he looked like Idris Elba. You know, why did Jake always got to look like Idris Elba, man? What's going on? You know, it look like Idris Elba or Chris Brown. You know, he got all the muscles and the muscle tone and the beard. I like how deep his voice is. Even Jake just be lusting in their mind, man.
Right.
Mind be all jammed the hell up.
Evil concubines.
Yeah, they evil concubines, like the brother said, man. Your thoughts be all jammed the hell up. You can't even think straight because you're lusting.
Even lusting in your prayers.
Yeah, man. Let's see.
Asking the Lord, yeah, Lord, make sure he tall.
See that?
The women be asking the Lord, make sure he got a strong hand.
That's vanity, man. You praying for carnal things that are you can't even handle that.
Right.
You know, you can't even. The brother will be trying to teach you. Next thing you talking about, oh, I wanna make love to you. Why the brother breaking the scriptures down?
Talking about hurry up.
The hell kind of madness is this? You know, I had to separate myself from somebody like that. The hell is going on around here, man?
Talking about you in that Bible stuff too more. You need to be more than me.
See that? That's a false balance, man. Your mind is bad. And the Lord said, can two walk together except they be agreed?
Right.
You with this man only because he know how to break down the scripture, sister? That's madness. Brother, you with this woman because she wear her hair wraps nice? Her hair wraps turn you on? Hey, I heard that before, man. An Israelite man told a woman that the way she carry herself on the out, you know, yeah, we want a woman that's modest and that covers herself in that. But the brother said it turned her on, man. Absolute madness.
Crazy,
man. Like, why are we so carnal in this world, man? Reading on, though, through the Spirit, it says, for this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that it might depart from me. And Paul was a mighty man through the Spirit. Right. And he sought the Lord 3 times on this matter. And before this, he was already performing miracles. Mm-hmm. You know, so this had to be a strong spirit that he was dealing with. The man was casting out demons, but he had this stronghold on him that he had to seek the Lord 3 different times. Right. And so, Lord, please help me. Get this demon off me. You know, but the Lord got to humble men and keep men humble in the earth. And the only way we can be at that level and minister at that level is when we get those spiritual bodies, man. Because in that point in time, we're not going to be thinking about the flesh. Right. We're not going to be prideful. The spirit of pride, I can't wait for that day, man. Right. Lord willing, I get to inherit that, man. That I won't have pride in my heart. I can just serve the Lord and be mighty, blamelessly. I ain't got to worry about, oh, I'm perfect in my mind. I'm perfect. I'm like the Lord. Right. I ain't got to worry about that, man. Right. In this life, I do. You know, there's so many things that I wish that I didn't have to suffer with as a man in this mortal flesh while trying to serve the Lord, man. I'm sick of this damn flesh. If I could take the flesh and just throw it in the trash and just be all spirit, I would.
Oh, praise, man.
Because I want to be like the Lord, man. Because this is madness, man. Just sitting here thinking about going through these precepts and thinking about the things that we have to deal with on an everyday, day by day, hour, minute, second. Like, you literally can turn the corner going home and see a woman shaking their ass in the street, man, on a Friday, on a Sabbath. Or see somebody smoking something, or see somebody drinking something. Right. Running to all manner of wickedness in this world, man. You know, and the Lord, so for Paul to have to seek the Lord 3 times for this matter, how much more do we? Right. And things were on a much higher spiritual level back then. These men were literally casting out demons, healing people with ailments, broken bones, and blind eyes.
What knew for a fact they was Israelite.
Yeah, and they knew for a fact. So how much more should we in these last days coming back to the Lord from 400 years of oppression and slavery and lies and deceit and witchcraft and sorcery and sin, all manner of sin, death, and filthiness. We should be seeking the Lord 144,000 times, right, man. And that if it be possible, if we all had it in us, there shouldn't be a moment that we don't go without prayer, man.
Right.
Because the Lord said, pray without ceasing. You know, we should be praying and praying and praying. Because the days that we living in are evil, man.
Right.
You got Esau with his damn CGI and damn all manner of witchcraft, creating fake news and creating fake deaths and all types of wickedness, man. You know, so we got to seek the Lord an abundance of times that we don't fall into temptation, that we can be released from these demons, man. That we can be made perfect. And I'm led to believe that there's men in the earth that don't think that they can be perfect, man. We brothers read it, brothers to tell somebody, brothers to go to the precepts and break it down to somebody, right, to show them that not only Yahweh was perfect in the earth, it was other men that walked the earth that the Lord viewed as perfect. Abraham, right, David, Job, Enoch, right? Zechariah and his wife, Elizabeth. But when you tell a brother in the truth, or when you tell somebody in this world that you can be perfect through the spirit and power of the Most High God, it's like you said, damn, you supposed some witchcraft in their ears, man. Right. Trying to cast a spell on them or something. But I believe that, man. I truly believe that we can be perfect. The Lord said, wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his... If we couldn't be perfect, the Lord Yahweh himself would have never said, be ye therefore perfect. Right. Right? Even as your Father in heaven is perfect. Because whatsoever is done in heaven shall be done in earth. And vice versa. But reading on, I'm going to read verse 8 again. It says, for this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that it might depart from me. And he had hope that this demon was going to depart from him. Right. But he didn't dwell on that. He threw up his prayers and he kept moving. He believed that the Lord was going to heal him. He believed that the Lord was going to deliver him. But this thing was for us, written for an example of how many times we must seek the Lord when we faced with a challenge. If it doesn't happen in the moment that we want it to, through the Spirit. Reading on, it says, verse 9, it says, and he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee. Right? And a lot of people don't understand that term grace and what it is. It's a time frame. It's a period that the Lord has given for us. He said it's sufficient. I mean, it is enough for you to be able to do and perform in the lot that I have called you to do, and that's it. Nothing more, nothing less. You know? And just imagine that. We don't even know how much grace that is. Right. We don't know how much grace we have through the Spirit. He said, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Right? So even in our downfall, even when we're faced with these temptations and we fall, get back up. Mm-hmm. Because the Lord said, my strength is made perfect in weakness. Right? And a lot of you brothers that teach on the corners or that walk in this truth to the best of your ability, and you really got to believe in the Lord, man, right, and what he said to us. Because he didn't come down here lying. He didn't come down here saying what he wanted to say. Right. He came here and gave us the word of Yahweh, the Father himself. He said, my strength is made perfect in weakness. And you can't get no better than perfect. There's literally nothing better than perfect. So even in our downfall, that is an opportunity for us to become perfect or to become stronger, as the Lord just said. Right? It says, most gladly, therefore, I would rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. So when you, as a man striving for perfection, fall, the power of Christ is possibly resting upon you. Mm-hmm. Because you can take that and learn from it. That's how I tell brothers in this truth I think about things. I look at this as a learning experience. What is the Lord trying to teach me today? How can I become stronger? Right. How can I become better? The Lord has given me this temptation so I can help the next man. And if you're not looking at this, your infirmities this way, then what the hell are you doing? You're looking at things the complete wrong way.
Right.
If you're looking at things, you're a just man falls 7 times and rises up again. Any way other than this, you need to do some prayer. You need to fast. And pray that the Lord change your heart and mind so that you can believe more. Right? Lord, help my unbelief. Verse 10, it says, therefore I take pleasure in infirmities. Hey, that's a different spirit right there, man. Taking pleasure in being weak in the flesh. See, I ain't never thought about that. I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, in persecutions, in distresses for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then am I strong. Hey, a lot of brothers need to pray on that, meditate on that precept right there. Verse 9 and verse 10.
That's heavy.
Man, he said, I take pleasure. A lot of brothers, hey, I myself have said it out of my own mouth. I'm tired of falling the hell off. I'm tired of falling short. Paul said, hey, all praises to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua.
Come.
Imagine that, man. Imagine being around a man like that, man. And I know I'm not the only one that said out of my mouth, I'm tired of falling short. I'm sick of this damn madness. Because I want to be more perfect. But I have to look through the lens of Paul. Paul said, hey, all praises. And kept it moving. Kept believing. Went harder for the Lord.
Right.
Because he knew that the power of the Lord was resting upon him. That's a different type of mindset. And that may get brothers to the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, all praise to the Most High. And I'm going through things for the Lord's sake. I'd rather be going through things for the Lord's sake and knowing that I'm going through things for the Lord's sake than not really knowing what's really going on.
Right.
You know?
Somebody got to do it.
God. You know? Psalm 94:16, who will rise up for the Lord? You know? I'm going to read 2 more quick precepts real quick through the Spirit. And then I'm going to pass it back so the brother can get into Day of Atonement through the Spirit. Approaching up. The book of Psalms, chapter 34. See, I said I ain't really have much to go into. My mind kind of went blank. Hey, but you know, you let the Lord take over your vessel, you never know what he may bring out through the Spirit.
That's right.
It's the book of Psalms, chapter 34 and verse 18. It says, the Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. So I be trying to tell people, man, like when you going through things, hey, the Lord is at your door.
That's
the Lord is there.
That's right.
You know, because I'm going to give people this image. The Lord is like a genie. You know, as soon as you call on him, Shalom, what you need, you know. But when you ask of the Lord, you can't waver, though. You got to truly believe.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, man, I said a prayer recently. I believed in that thing. And the Lord showed me instantly, I'm here. You know? But you got to constantly keep praying. Constantly keep praying.
That's right. That's right.
And the Lord, that it's almost like a bridge to the other side. The more you pray, the more that bridge go down. Mm-hmm. And the easier that path to the other side becomes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you kind of got to give Jake visuals in this thing so Jake can believe more, man.
Yeah.
You know, you got to paint a picture in Jake's eyes, you know, because that's how the Most High is, man.
Yep.
He'll see something and he bring it to life through the Spirit with his breath, you know. Verse 19, it says, many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivereth him out of them all. So every affliction that the righteous may go through, hey, there's a way to escape. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 13 is one of my favorite precepts.
God.
You know, hey, if you don't know what to say, go read it. You know, and meditate on it when you read it through the Spirit. My last precept, this is Romans chapter 5 and verse 3. Romans 5 and 3, it says, and not only so, but we glory in tribulations also, You know, so Paul was going through it.
Mm-hmm.
And to say, I'm led to believe Paul was out there clucking his heels together. Hey, all praise to Yahweh by Shem Yahushua. Brothers was looking at him like, this nigga has lost his damn mind. You know? Can't even see. I'm led to believe when he was struck with blindness, hey, he was out there all praises to Yahweh. You know? It says, knowing that tribulation worketh patience. When you're down and out, on your deathbed, when you're low, you ain't got no money in your bank account, you know, your lights are off, you ain't got no water, you ain't got no food, you ain't got nothing. Hey, through that experience is working patience. When you got faith in the Lord.
Yeah.
And when you have seen things that the Lord has done, you'll know and understand the Lord will come through. I don't know how. Hey, man, I've been there before.
Right.
Hey, I don't know how the hell I'm going to get out of this situation. Hey, man, I was literally just there. Wrecked my damn car. I ain't have no money for a new car. Waiting on a check from the job, from the insurance company. Found out that they weren't going to come through with no money. I ain't getting nothing from them. Got a job an hour away. How the hell am I finna get a job? Keep my job. You know, get to work. Gotta work in 3 days. I ain't got no car. What the hell is finna happen? I don't know. I ain't gonna stress on it though. I'm gonna pray, let the Lord have his way. I got a I ain't gonna say brand new. I got a new car and I own the title. So I ain't gotta make no extra payments whatsoever. Hey, this is a testimony, right?
Testimony.
Hey, man.
Testimony.
Hey, the Lord will make a way out of no way. That's something that they say in the Christian church, but that's real. They want nothing going on, man. I ain't know where this path was. The Lord will give you the Lord will give you a foresight on certain things, so where you can see, you know, how to direct your path in His truth, man. And He'll give you discernment, man. I didn't know where this thing was going. I got to a dead. You know how you get to a dead end? It ain't no right turn. It ain't no left turn.
That's it.
It ain't nothing else in the front. Hey, the Lord said I walked through the valley of the shadow of death.
Right.
You know, I couldn't see nothing in the front of me, to the right, to the left. But only thing I could do was either go backwards or keep moving. I had to take my little lamp, light the fire, and keep it moving.
Keep it moving.
And the Lord made a path. It ain't the best vehicle in the world, but it's something. You know, it get me from point A to point B and do all the things that I need to do in between.
Hey, it's better than what you had. You ain't got no
Right.
payments.
Yeah. Hey, no payments at all. Only thing I need is insurance, man.
That's it.
And that ain't really nothing to compare to what the Lord has blessed me with as far as a job. You know, I can sleep and pay that payment, man. But reading on through the Spirit. Because another brother said we ain't trying to be long. I'm going to get a couple more verses. It says, for when we were yet without strength, in due time, Christ died for the ungodly. For scarcely for a righteous man would one die. Yet peradventure for a good man, some would even dare to die. But the Most High commandeth his love toward us, and that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Much more then, being now justified by his blood, we shall be saved from wrath through him. For if when we were enemies, we were reconciled to the Most High by the death of his Son, much more being reconciled, we shall be saved by his life. So, utilize the Most High while he's in your presence, man, or else be cut off. You know, for tribulation, for infirmities,
right,
for lust, for temptation. The Lord is at your door. You know, I'm here as your brother Joel to tell you, hey, the Lord is real.
That's right.
You know, I've seen the Lord work in my life personally, you know, in so many ways, you know. But with that, we'll pass to the next brother through the Spirit. I'm going to pass it to Brother Jose.
Con. That's mighty right there, man. Hey, it's mighty, man. So we're gonna go to Romans real quick. So like Galatians. It's the book of Galatians chapter 6. We're gonna start at the top. Because we touching on burdens, you know. We got burdens that we may be dealing with. You know, you got burdens, you got shameful sins. So this is Galatians chapter 6 and verse 1. It says, brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault. Now, this could be very well speaking in regards to you having a fault with one another, you know. Farewell, you know, you can apply this same concept. But there's a key point to this, though. It says, Galatians 6 and 1, brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. So when somebody else speaks in regards to something that they used to deal with, you should consider that you could have been dealing with that as well. You know? Now, all praise to the Most High Yahweh Shameful Shah. We didn't have to deal with, you know, being in the LGBTQ community and the rainbow color community and things like that. But you could, hey, I was just meditating on this the other day. I was literally thanking the Most High that I didn't have to worry about bending over and having another man on my back. You know? And not just only that, I found myself thanking the Most High as I was watching this show. There was this woman, I was watching this show about this Jake. His dad was got caught up in some financial issues, trying to make the best happen for their family, and got jammed up with some Russian gangs. And then when he got older, he thought his dad was living this certain life. He thought his dad was an ordinary guy. And he came to find out that somebody coming after him because they thought he had the money that they owe him. So, long story short, you never know what your brother could be dealing with. So they was trying to kill the dude. His dad had millions of dollars that he had stole and then wound up getting killed. And then he had an answer to all that while his daughter and his family life is being in jeopardy as well, you know. So I was looking at that and I was saying, man, I thank the Lord I didn't ever have to be in the street life. God. You know, I just literally told Jake yesterday on the job. I said, man, I thank the Lord I ain't had to sell no dope, you know. But just because I ain't had to do that don't mean another brother didn't have to do that. There's so many brothers that had to sell dope. That's all they know, the street life. And so many women that had to strip, you know, just to make a living, or try to pay for college, or try to get some diapers on the baby, get some oatmeal or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We don't know what our brothers and sisters go through. We can't just assume just because we know this and we know that and we got this and we got that everybody else ain't struggling too. You know, like Paul said, it says, Galatians 6 and 1, brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou be also tempted. You got to consider yourself. The Lord could have had you go through that. Hey, the addiction that I had, the Lord could have had this brother be overtaken worse than me, or even bad as I was, you know. Or even when we see other people that we teach on the highways and byways, there's so many stories we don't heard. There's so many people that come up to us, they smell bad. You know, we out here in them elements. We in the heart of Fayetteville. We done been on the Merc. You know, if you know anything about Fayetteville, look it up. Look up Fayetteville, North Carolina. It's the top 10 worst cities in America. Baltimore on that list. Chicago on that list. Fayetteville, North Carolina is on that list. We're talking about the worst cities in the United States of America. Fayetteville, North Carolina is number 10. If you don't know nothing about Fayetteville, Fayetteville used to be the #1 hotspot for military. The #1 hotspot for the military for getting drugs, getting prostitutes. Fayetteville, North Carolina. We're not talking about California. We're not talking about, it's way beyond that. If you was in the military back in the day, we talking about the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. If you was in the military back in the day, you known about Fayetteville, North Carolina. Whoever got relatives or anybody in the military, ask them about what they call it, Vietnam. Ask them about Vietnam. you know, and we on the same strip where all the dope dealing was, where all the prostitutes were going and selling themselves at. If you ever came to camp and came out here where we at, them same spirits are out here.
We still do it.
Them same principalities are over us. Not me and the brother right here in our congregation, but still in the same area. Because the same thing go on in Chicago, the same thing go on in Baltimore, the same thing go on in Virginia. You know, these things, all the same things happen. It's over and over again. You know, so you got to consider that you could get jammed up. You know, you could be dealing with something. You know, you could deal with a porn addiction. You could deal with a crack addiction, a heroin addiction, fentanyl overdose, found dead somewhere. You know, an anger demon, a molestation demon. You can't just say, well, that brother, he off. He got demons on him. He jammed up and this and that. That sister, she all over the place. I would never do that. You can't say that. You know. Galatians 6:2, it says, bear ye one another burdens, and so fulfill the law of Hamashiach. For if a man think himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceiveth himself. So we can't deceive ourselves thinking we so mighty to the point where we ain't gonna get jammed up. We ain't gonna get overthrown by this spirit, by that spirit. You know, because these spirits, hey, they know us more than we know ourselves. You know, because they come from the third heavens. You know. So I want to get this real quick. We got to try to move along so we can touch on as much as possible. So, you know, you got brothers and sisters that may come into this truth. You know, they may try to set an agenda for themselves. You got men that may say, well, you know, I heard that we can have multiple wives. They may try to set an agenda for themselves. You got women, they might have heard, well, I heard they got to take care of me. They got to pay my bills. You know, they got to do all these many things. And then you miss the whole foundation. Your foundation is off when your mindset like that. This is one thing you got to understand. You know, this is Sirach chapter 37. Sirach chapter 37. And I'm going to start at verse 19. It reads, it says, there is one that is wise and teacheth many, and yet is unprofitable to himself. So what I look like telling you, you know, that you need to get yourself together. But the whole time I had a porn addiction, you know, what I look like, I would be unprofitable to myself. You know, that's why you got to stay humble. You know, because you might see somebody for a minute. Hey, that brother mighty. You know, that brother real mighty. Next thing you know, where that brother at? You know, that's because you unprofitable to yourself. You can get jammed up. Many ways the Lord can jam you up. Just look how the Lord jammed up Saul. You ain't working yourself out, but you jealous of what he dealing with. What he got on his table. Man, that brother mighty, man. Who the brother think he is, man? That sister, who she think she is? Next thing you know, you're losing your focus. You're losing sight on what needs to be put in front of you. You know, focus on getting yourself together. You know, let the Lord exalt you, do on his time. You know, this truth is bigger than a camp name, a color on your shirt. This truth is bigger than you memorizing verses. This truth is bigger than you just going on the highways and byways. This truth is about enduring too. You know, you might have to go through 10 years of hell. Non-stop, no breaks, no days off, straight 10 years of straight hell. No intermission. Can't catch a break. 10 years of death. 10 years of no sleep. 10 years of no peace. All hell breaking loose in your house. Or it could be 15 years. Or it could be 6 years. And then the Lord sift you out that 7th year. You know? You can't think yourself for something you ain't. You know, who they think he is, man? I'm running this thing right here. You know? Your mindset got to be right. You know? You got to be thinking the right things. You got to have the right mindset. That's what helped me overcome and control that spirit. You know, I had to do a lot of fighting, you know. A lot of fighting. You can't just come in this truth and think you ain't got to do no fight. Feast days, the feast day, you know. I'm gonna go to camp when I want to, you know. I need to show them what I know. I need to show them how much I know. The Lord gonna take that right there, and He gonna put it on the back burner. He gonna start trimming you down. You know, if He give you a gift, He ain't gonna. You might still know some prophecies. You might still remember precepts. You might still know how to quote certain things. If the Lord give you a gift, He not always gonna take that gift from you. But He can jam your mind up. He can plague you. Just look at these Christians. They know how to quote verses. They mind bad. They think a white man gonna come from the heavens and save everybody and gather everybody together.
Everybody is crazy.
And we just had a heathen that don't believe in God. She had a little bit of knowledge here and there and a sprinkle of this and of that. Don't think just because you are Israelite and you in this truth that everything gonna be all right. You gotta fight. You gotta believe. You gotta work out your own salvation. You gotta get yourself right. You know, so the Lord said, Sirach 37 in the Apocrypha, verse 19, there is one that is wise and teacheth many, and yet is unprofitable to himself. You see that? It says, verse 20, there is one that sheweth wisdom in words and is hated. He shall be destitute of all fools. So how you want it? How you want to suffer? You know? How you want to suffer and how you want to overcome? The choice is yours. So that's what the Lord is saying. Now I'm gonna get Romans real quick. Romans chapter 2. You know, we kind of got to speed up because we got to touch on the Day of Atonement before we close out. Romans chapter 2 verse 21, and it reads, it says, I'm gonna start at verse 20. Romans 2 and 20. It says, an instructor of the foolish, a teacher of babes, which has the form of knowledge and of the truth in the law. Thou therefore which teaches another, teachest thou not thyself? So you teaching somebody else. Why are you not teaching yourself? You should be teaching yourself. It says, thou that preachest a man should not steal, doest thou steal? You know, so we telling people, hey, you know, gotta come back to the Lord. Hey, is that what we move? Is that what we follow? You know, hey, you gotta cut that lust demon down. Is that what we deal with? Is that how we teach ourselves? You know, and we gotta follow that every day, like the scriptures say, and do it for all, and do it, roughly paraphrasing, and do it for the elect's sake. You know. Because we not called just to be called. You know, the Lord called us to be a part of the body. Why if we supposed to be a part of the body, why would we hinder the body? What sense does that make? You know, what I look like, you know, my child saying, Daddy, can I get on your back? Put my son on my back. Next thing you know, he got a knife in the back of his hand, just stab me in the neck and kill me. Why would he want to get on my back to kill me? Why would we want to join this ministry to tear households down? Why would we want to join and allow people to come into this ministry to make people's lives a hell? You know, why would I want to be a teacher to see somebody suffer? Why would I want to be a teacher to teach somebody how to destroy their household? What sense does that make? Why would I want to be a husband just to kill my wife? Make her life a living hell. Every day I come home, you don't do this, you don't do that. You ain't this, you ain't that. And it's sad to say that's what goes on in a lot of Israelite households. You know, sad to say that's what goes on in a lot of Israelite congregations. You know, sad to say that's what a brother deals with on a day-to-day basis. Sad to say that's what a sister deals with on a day-to-day basis. You know, some so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans, peace only comes from them being by themselves. And you got to start that today by cutting these spirits off, trimming these addictions off, you know. So it goes on to say, verse 22, it says, thou, Romans 2 and 22, thou that sayest a man should not commit adultery, doest thou commit adultery? Thou that abhorrest idols, doest thou commit sacrilege? Thou that makest thy boast of the law, through breaking the law dishonest thou Most High God? For the name of Most High God is blasphemed among the Gentiles through you, as it is written. So, hey, are you the one making the Most High look bad? Because he knows what you do. He knows what I do. Are we the ones making the Most High look bad? You know, by how we live our lives. Because somebody going to see. Somebody going to know. Man, he teaching that. That's how he talking. He ain't living like that. He was just in the club yesterday. You know. I just seen him hand a white bag with some white powder in it to somebody down the road. He ain't nothing about what he talking. You know. And the Lord, he doesn't like that. He's not pleased with that. You know. Now, you got Israelites that had to deal with addictions, right? So let me get this real quick before I pass it to the brother. Now, this is Acts, chapter, so like, I want to go to 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians, chapter 5. Now, there was a point in time where you had somebody that was so infatuated with lust and their flesh that they wanted to sleep with their own mother. Now somebody who in their right mind would be so addicted to pleasure that they wanted to sleep with their own kin, somebody that brought them in the world. Now this is 1 Corinthians chapter 5, or even so much so to have his father's wife. If you can understand, we never know what age limit is up here, you know. But just imagine, you know, you sleeping with your mother. You know, hey, you would never know who go through what in this life. Who doing what, you know. The scriptures, hey, it gives you a rundown on just about any and everything in life. You got incest in the law. You got bestiality in the law. You got abomination in the law. You got cannibalism in the law. People ate their own children, you know. So, hey, ain't nothing new under the sun. 1 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 1, it says, it is reported commonly that there is fornication among you, and such fornication as is not so much as named among the Gentiles. Now, this is the northern kingdom, that one should have his father's wife. Now, who in the world will be in their right mind to do something like that? Well, we gonna tell you. A demon. That's what. You know, a spirit that wants to destroy a household. Now, you had a man in that household who's a father. You had a mother in that household who was a wife. And you had a child in that household. You know. You can't have a day that goes by where you're not equipped. You're not prayed up. Because this can happen to anybody. You read these scriptures, it ain't just something that happened 1,000 years ago, 300 years ago, 70 AD, 186 BC, 387 BC. This can happen in 2025. This can happen in 2026. You know, somewhere somebody can say, well, I can't get no woman. I'm always just deal with my mama. Just imagine that. That's a mean, filthy, wicked, abominable, satanic demon.
That's sick.
You know? And that's an addiction too. Now let me get this. Let me get this precept. Because people gotta understand how this thing is. Now this is Matthew chapter 12. And I'm gonna start at verse 43. Matthew 12 and 43. It says, when the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, he walketh through dry places, seeking rest and findeth none. So this is talking about a spirit. So the spirit that I dealt with is somewhere out there. Somewhere out there. Ready to hop on the next man. Ready to hop on the next sister. May even try to hop on somebody's child. You know, you got to think like this. How else you gonna get these demons off of you? How else you gonna keep a chokehold on these demons so they won't control your life? You know, we supposed to be a new creature, right? We supposed to be born again, right? What I look like still struggling with the same things I struggled with when I was in the Christian church. What I look like, you know? You got to be serious about your salvation. You got to be serious about becoming a new creature, you know? It says seeking rest and finding none. These spirits looking to see who they go overthrow. You know, what household can they overthrow? You know, what congregation can they overthrow? You know, that's why it's important for camp leaders to be equipped, to be serious about this position. That's why it's important for elders to be equipped and serious about this. That's why it's important for wives, sisters to be equipped and serious about being a wife. Because you never know what your husband dealing with. You know, your husband ain't gonna tell you everything. You know, if he is, you know, I'm gonna just be honest. Hey, if a man tell a woman everything, I ain't seen nowhere in the scriptures where King David told his wives everything. Nowhere. I ain't seen nowhere in the scriptures where Yahweh told everything to them women. Yahweh spoke in parables. Yahweh didn't even tell everything to the apostles. You know. So it says, Matthew 12:44. Then he said, I will return into my house. This is spirit saying he gonna go back to where he came from. Then he said, I will return into my house from whence I came out. And when he is come, he findeth it empty, swept, and garnished. So, hey, look, you might overcome these spirits for a moment, for a day, you know, for a month. You know, you might say, man, I ain't smoked in 3 weeks. You know, I ain't did that in a minute. You know, I ain't masturbated in a month. You know, I ain't drunk no liquor in a year. But what? It says, Matthew 12:44. Then he said, I will return into my house from whence I came out. And when he is come, he findeth it empty, swept, and garnished. Then goeth he and taketh with himself 7 other spirits more wicked than himself. So these other spirits can bring more spirits, you know. That's why you got to make sure you hanging around people that can build you up and not tear you down. That can motivate you and not tempt you. That can encourage you and not overthrow you. You know, you got to be a man. And if you're going to deal with a woman, make sure that woman is equipped to walk the same path as you. Don't be on the streets trying to teach, and then you dealing with a woman that's in the club, that's in the bar, that work at Hooters with her behind all out and the chest all out. You know, because she can bring them other spirits that you ain't never dealt with. And now next thing you know, you done overcame, and then now you find yourself, you're not going to be able to overcome. You know, these spirits know how to go to get other spirits and come back and say, well, this place was clean. This place is empty. You know, he done started praying. He done started fasting. He done started quoting. He done started remembering verses. She done started praying. She done started fasting. She stopped eating unclean foods. She stopped watching that nasty stuff. He stopped watching that nasty stuff. Let's go get some other demons. You know, let's come back and overthrow this place. You know, it says, then Matthew 12:45, then go he and take it with himself 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter in and dwell there. And the last state of that man is worse than the first. Even so shall it be also unto this wicked generation. So the Lord said the last estate, you know, is going to be worse than the first. And this is how this generation is going to be. That's what Yahweh said. Now, I want to show you something real quick. This is the book of Luke. Let me show you something that the Messiah dealt with. This is the book of Luke, chapter 4. And I'm going to start at verse 13. Because, hey, don't think just because we call him the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, the Alpha, the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end, the Prince of Peace, the strong tower, the Holy One of Israel, the anointed. Don't think that he didn't feel what you feel. He felt very well enough what you feel. Even worse. You know. He knew his time. We don't know our time. So on his level was worse. You know, he felt everything. Hey, don't you think he was able to read people's minds? He created them. Don't you think he was able to know I mean, you know, come on now. We talking about the anointing. So this is Luke chapter 4. And I'm going to start at verse 1. And then we're going to jump down. It says, and Yahushua, which the world calls him Jesus, and Yahushua, being full of the Holy Spirit, returned from Jordan and was led by the Spirit in the wilderness, being 40 days tempted of the devil. And in those days he did eat nothing, and when they were ended, he afterward hungered. So here you go, you have it. If you saying you ain't got to fast, explain to me why the anointing is fasting. If you think you don't have to fast, why did the creator of flesh have to fast? And that may be a little too high for people. You know, a lot of people don't understand that. You know, if you think you don't have to fast, why is the Messiah here fasting? His spirit was troubled. I'm pretty sure your spirit is troubled. And the only way you're going to overcome is by fasting. You know, the only way that demon is going to get weaker is by you fasting, by you praying. But guess what? You got Chick-fil-A, you got Chipotle, Wingstop, Burger King, McDonald's. Wee, boy. Every time you try to fast, you start, man, that chicken, that pizza. You know, you gotta have the flats with the spicy sauce. Gotta have your ranch. You know, gotta have that juice. You know, some people still drink them juice boxes. You know, you might get you a honey bun and some chips. You know, Satan, he don't want you to overcome that demon. He start putting in your mind all of these different meals. You know, maybe I ain't had oxtails. Maybe I should get me some oxtails. Macaroni, cheese, collard greens. You know, you ain't cooked in 3 weeks. All of a sudden you think about cooking. Man, I want to make something right quick. You need to be fasting. We living in the days where we need to be fasting. Let the Lord come on the scene. And you got a porn addiction. It's over for you. I'm just be honest with you. Let Yahushua come on the scene and you struggling with putting that weed down. It's over for you. Because that's idolatry. You know, stay away from people that say masturbating ain't bad. You ain't got no woman. Brother, you need help, brother. You helping yourself. Stay away from them people. You need to keep your eyes on Fisherman for Zion videos, because we going to make sure you feel the fear of the Most High. Because when the anointed come on the earth, if you got a weed demon, porn demon, anger demon, you hate your brother demon, you secretly jealous of your brother demon, you want to be over your camp leader demon, you want to overthrow the camp demon, you hate camp demons, you don't like prophecy demons, you hate going to camp demons, you want to beat on your woman demon, let any of that be on the scene when the Lord come back. It's over for you. You're done. You know, you're not going to see the kingdom of heaven being built up. You know, the lake of fire is going to be your first and last resort. You know, you might as well stop telling Esau he going into slavery, because you need to be focused on yourself. You know, you might as well stop telling these Chinese people they Chinese restaurants gonna get shut down and they're gonna be working for your restaurant, because you gonna be jammed up. You know, focus on yourself. That's what's wrong with a lot of Israelites. They try to come in this truth and get a camp shirt, get a YouTube channel, start quoting verses, and the whole time you just an open vessel, an open wound, where these demons coming in and just wrecking the havoc. You know, if you were spiritually equipped, you shouldn't be oppressed because a man know how to quote a precept. A man know how to break down Daniel 7. A man know how to go into the 12 feathers. You know, the 10 horns, breaking down the mark of the beast. That shouldn't impress you. What should impress you is how in the world this brother overcome all of this stuff that he was dealing with when he came out of the world. That's what you need to be asking. Brother, how did you overcome that demon? Brother, how in the world did you keep your household intact? Brother, you got jammed up. How you still walking? How you still enduring in this truth? That's the questions we need to be asking. Brother, how can I overcome this spirit, brother? Brother, help me. You know. So the Lord, he dealt with temptation. But check this out. Luke 4:13, it says, and when the devil had ended all the temptation, he departed from him for a season. So just because you overcame, that don't mean that spirit ain't gonna come back. That don't mean you ain't gonna get tempted again. You know, just because you had a one night stand with that white woman, you know, a lot of brothers, they deal with white, I might be making up a word, but you got a lot of jakes that's so infatuated with white women. You know, you got a brother that might want a Chinese woman. You got a sister, she might want a white man. You got a sister, she might want to deal with a lot of people call him foreign or exotic. You know, just because that demon, you know, left for a month, that don't mean he ain't gonna come back. He gonna come back. You got to be equipped when he come back. You know, and these are the things I had to do. You know, I had to be equipped to not only going from a month, not only going for 6 months, not only going for a year, but I had to be equipped for anything else that try to come in. You know, you got rid of that porn demon, but a gambling demon might try to come. Next thing you know, you lost money because of wicked, nasty sites, and now you about to lose money because you gambling. And so that demon try to say, okay, I got him. He thought he was good because he ain't dealing with porn no more. Now I'm gonna really jam up his money. He used to be on OnlyFans, giving his money to women. Now I'm gonna take his money away. He playing the slots, you know. Now the Lord done jam you up. Now you ain't got no money to do nothing. Lord, I just want to buy a Bible. You should have been thinking about that before you were buying them nasty sites. You know, you done went from buying nasty sites. The Lord gave you a way to escape. And now you done went from buying nasty sites. Now you're in the casino. You know, or it could be many different ways. You could somebody might not be dealing with a porn demon. Somebody might not be dealing with a gambling demon. Somebody might just be dealing with trying to buy love. Now you just giving money away to women. Or a woman just giving money away to a man. You done went from this relationship, you done went to that relationship, you done went to a that relationship. Now you just addicted with attention. I got 2 bands for him. You know, nobody ain't never came in your life like me. Now you trying to buy love. You know. Now you blind. Now you don't know what love is. Now somebody tell you the Lord love you. Lord don't love me. After all I done been through. That Bible ain't real. You done went from the Christian church, Islam, Jehovah's Witness. Now the Lord had you in the trenches. You done got into the truth. You done went through hell because you try to pay your way out of it. And now the Lord done overthrown you. Now you don't believe in the Lord now. There's so many ways the Lord can get you, man. He can spit you out, you know. You got to be either on fire or you're going to be cold. You can't be both. You can't be lukewarm. So these spirits going to try to come back, you know. But you got to overcome, you know. Hey, but what did King David do? King David, hey, he had to tell somebody. Hey, Nathan knew, you know. Don't think David was just out there dealing with Bathsheba. No, hey, Nathan, hey, got on him, man. You know, so many avenues and things you can understand that our forefathers they got overthrown. King David, hey, committed adultery. You know, the Most High had to send a prophet to him. How much more you? How much more me? How much more the average sister that keeps the Sabbath? You know, just because we Israelites, that don't mean we ain't gonna get jammed up. That don't mean we ain't gonna fight. We gotta move too. In order for the Lord to fight for us, we gotta fight too. You know, did Gideon go out there just barehanded? Last time I checked, he had a shofar. Did King David go out there just barehanded? Last time I checked, he had a rock, a stone in his hand, and a sling. You know. So, hey, how much more us? What are we gonna be equipped with? We can't buy our way out of this thing. You know, we gotta have some spiritual armor on. You know. So let me get this in Hebrews chapter 6. You got something, King?
Nah.
Let's get this in Hebrews chapter 6, and then we're gonna go to Leviticus. This is the book of Hebrews chapter 6. This is the book of Hebrews chapter 11. And I'm gonna start at verse 5. It says, by faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death, and was not found, because Most High God had translated him. For before his translation, he had this testimony that he pleased Most High God. And that's what we got to do. We got to have a testimony speaking on things that the Lord allowed to allow us to be overcome of, you know. And another understanding of the prophets also is a understanding of testimony as well, because they speak volumes of what is going to come. Jeremiah prophesied that America is going to be destroyed. Ezekiel prophesied that Esau going to be destroyed. You know, Isaiah prophesied that Yahushua was going to come and be smitten for us to bring us back to the Father. You know, they testify the things that come, you know. And so very well we can testify of things the Lord allows us to overcome, you know. Hebrews 11:6, it says, but without faith, it is impossible to please him. And so I had faith that the Lord will allow me to overcome. Now, there was days where Satan tried to jam me up, say, man, you know what, this I'm gonna mess around and get jammed up. But no, hey, we still fighting, you know. Here to this day right now, we still fighting. Satan try to put thoughts in my mind, you know, try to jam me up, say, nah, this ain't gonna work. You gonna still get jammed up. You ain't gonna get a chariot. You know, you gonna be a 2/3. But you gotta have faith. That's what you should be praying for. You should be praying for faith, and you should be in a word. You know, so hey, some of y'all need to delete some of them apps, man. Some of these social media sites. You know, if you trying to walk with the Most High like Enoch was, like Elijah was, you know, like Elisha was, you can't be open and exposed to everything. Last time I checked, when the prophets came on the scene, they said, "Comest thou peaceably?" You know. Why was they saying that if the prophets was just out in the open? They see them every day. You see them every day. No, you need to be with the Most High more than you with folly and madness, more than you with rail from the street, more than you with your co-worker that talk vanity and folly all the time. You need to be in that word so much, you know, so much, and less on these sites, you know, unless you just getting some information to teach, you know. You can't be an open wound to where these demons just coming in and just destroying you. You gotta have faith. Hebrews 11:6, it says, but without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to Most High God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. So you have to constantly seek the Most High. Just because you felt like you overcame, you can't just stop then. You got to keep praying, Lord, don't bring that demon back. Lord, allow me to stay strong. Lord, allow me to stay equipped. Lord, allow me to help somebody to overcome, just like I overcame. That's what you got to say and do. You got something? Wow. So, hey, there's many more precepts that we wanted to touch on, but nevertheless, we got to hop into Day of Atonement, because that's what we're approaching. So let's go to Leviticus real quick. Go to the law. You can bring this out, King. Leviticus 23 and 27.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 23 and verse 27. It says, also on the 10th day of this 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. It shall be an holy convocation unto you. And ye shall afflict your souls and offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. And ye shall do no work in that same day, for it is the day of atonement, to make an atonement for you before the Lord your God. For whatsoever soul it be, there shall not be afflicted, and in that same day he shall be cut off from among his people.
He shall be what?
He shall be cut off from among his people.
So you should be having fear, you know. You should be having fear that even though we were rehearsing the righteous acts, you know, even though we're not under the law, we under grace, you know, you should be fearing, you know, like the Lord said in the book of Romans, you know, these are written for our learning. It also says in Romans that let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. You know, so you should be fully persuaded that if you don't keep this day, the Lord can cut you off. Keep going, Baba Kishah.
Ye shall do no manner of work. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations and all your dwellings. It shall be unto you a Sabbath of rest, and ye shall afflict your souls in the 9th day of the month at even. From even unto even shall ye celebrate your Sabbath.
So this is something that we got to do, you know. This ain't something we should be doing and say, well, you know what, I'm mighty, I kept the Day of Atonement. We're not looking for glorification amongst men. This is our heritage right here. The Lord gave us this day to give us a clean slate. Clean your plate off, you know. If you a so-called black, Hispanic, and Native American, you got you some spaghetti, you got you that little plastic bowl. If you don't clean that thing properly, you still gonna see that spaghetti stain in that bowl. You went through all year, you putting all this other food in there. You still see that little orange, yellowish stain in there. If you don't properly clean it, so the Day of Atonement should remind you and humble you and have you look at yourself and say, I need a clean start. You know, the Lord gave me a day to where I can atone for all my sins, all of them, every last one of them. You know, because there's some, let's read this real quick. Let's go to Psalm chapter 19. There's some stuff that, hey, you may not even be aware that the Lord is holding in the regards of iniquity. Now, this is the book of Psalms chapter 19. And I'm going to start at verse 12. Psalms 19 and 12, and it reads, it says, who can understand his errors? Cleanse thou me from secret faults. So we should be asking, as we approach this day, we should be asking that the Lord cleanse us from secret faults, you know, things we might not even be aware of. Because I'm pretty sure 6 months into the truth, you know, we didn't know certain things we were doing was bad. You know, who, you know, we don't know who coming to the truth every day. Many people are coming to the fold, you know. Many things, hey, look, Fisherman for Zion's first Passover, hey, look, we was just trying our best. You know, we were just trying our best. You know, some people ate chicken on the Passover. You know, that could have been a secret to them. They didn't. Hey, if the Lord ain't open up your understanding, there's so many things you could be jammed up with. You don't even know. You know, so you got to ask the Lord to keep you away from secret faults. Psalms 19 and 13, it says, keep back thy servant also from presumptuous sins. Let them not have dominion over me. Then shall I be upright, and I shall be innocent from the great transgressions. So like, can you get that for me in the blue letter? I can't get it on this device right here. So we're gonna look at and see what presumptuous sin is, according to Psalms 19 and 13. You might have to show it on the screen, or just let it play. Presumptuous sin. Just for edification.
Strong's H 2086. Zaid.
Now this is presumptuous. It says arrogant. You know, some people, they're arrogant on how they move. Proud. You know, some people are proud in this truth. Read Proverbs 6 and 16, man. You know, some Israelites, they just proud, man. You know, and that ain't something we want to do. We don't want to be proud, man. You know, we want the Lord to cleanse us from those sins, to cleanse our minds. So let's get numbers real quick. Number 29. You know, so Lord willing, if you haven't already kept the Day of Atonement, Lord willing, you're gonna keep it. You know, which we're keeping it Monday night, so-called Monday night at sundown, September the 29th at sundown to sundown. You know, so as soon as the sun go down, you don't eat nothing, you don't drink nothing, you stay in the scriptures, you afflict your soul, you get in the word. You should understand what you did wrong, what you need to work on, and where you fell short at. You know, somebody might have they might have fell short with gossiping, somebody might have fell short with murmuring, backbiting. You know, somebody might have fell short with breaking the Sabbath. You know, somebody might have fell short, you know, with idolizing. You know, they may be aware that, okay, they watch too much football. You know, ever since the season started, NFL season, college football season started, I've been watching too much football. Okay, that's idol. I'm moving in the spirit of idolatry. So let me confess that. Get James for me real quick. James chapter 5. So somebody don't even know the extent of their falling short is holding them back. So before we get there, let's get Numbers chapter 29 and verse 7, and it reads. It says, and this is our heritage, because we read Ecclesiastes chapter 17 verse 10 and verse 11. You understand that the Lord gave us instructions. You know, the descendants of Jacob, these so-called Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans. The Lord gave us instructions to maneuver. You know, maneuver around other people and maneuver in serving Him. You know. So if He gave us and commanded that we keep a day to where our sins can be forgiven, and how the ordinance was back in the Old Testament, you know, the Aaronites were mainly Aaron would have an animal that he would let go and things like that. When you read in the so-called Old Testament in the law, you know, the Lord can allow certain sins to be released from you. So Numbers chapter 29 verse 7, it says, and ye shall have and ye shall have on the 10th day of this 7th month a holy convocation. So it's also a day for you to come together as well. If you by yourself, you got to try your best to be around some other Israelites to the best of your ability, even though some may not be able to be around others. But hey, turn on a video, you know, something. It says on the 10th day of the 7th month and holy convocation, and ye shall afflict your souls, ye shall not do any work therein. So if you can get off work, try your best to get off work. You know, try to take it all in, absorb this day. You know, meditate on what you did wrong. You know, what you should have, you know, did to avoid doing wrong. You know, what you should do to avoid doing those mistakes again. It says, ye shall not do any work therein, but ye shall offer a burnt offering unto the Lord Yahweh for a sweet savor, 1 young bullock, 1 ram, and 7 lambs of the first year. They shall be unto you without blemish, and their meat offering shall be of fine flour mingled with oil, 3 tenth deals to a bullock, and 2 tenth deals to 1 ram. And so these are all the offerings that we used to have, you know, in the midst of keeping this day. And so now, let me get this real quick. In the book of Romans. So now we have different sacrifices in this day and age. This is Romans chapter 12 and verse 1. Romans chapter 12 and verse 1. And it reads, it says, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God Most High, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice. So we should be understanding that we should be fasting in these last days. What else are we going to bring before the Most High? The Most High is not accepting no flour, no pigeon in this grace period. We should be accepting Yahweh Shai by giving up our bodies, giving up our minds, you know, teaching, reading, making supplications that's acceptable unto the Most High. You can't give the Most High no pomegranate, no pumpkin, you know. Can't get the Most High no apple. You know, went to a nasty farm that the Edomite is over and committing all bestiality to some of them lambs and sheep, and you go buy Say, yeah, man, it was $700. And you just chop it off and hold it up. Here, Lord. The Lord ain't gonna accept that. After Esau done popped that animal and then went back home to his wife.
Madness.
You know, the Lord ain't dealing with that. You gotta present your body. Hey, you might have to go on them highways and byways if you a man that's able-bodied. You might have to come on YouTube. You spending all this time on YouTube, your woman, where you at? You know, I thought you was supposed to close out camp. You know, your children miss you. And or your woman, she's sewing garments. You know, baby, you gonna come to bed? Baby, I got 2 more. You giving all this time to the Most High. You know, you going from city to city. I need to find the elect. I need to see who need the Lord. I need to see who need the word. You know, you ain't worried about your life. You ain't worried about your health. You ain't worried about your money. You ain't worried about your woman. You ain't worried about your man if you're a woman. You trying to do the will and the work of the Most High. That is presentable to the Lord. You know, these are the sacrifices we should be making in these last days. But you got a lot of weak, effeminate men that don't want to come out here in these streets and teach. That don't want to come on the YouTube channel and get in these elements. Nobody gonna watch this. There ain't nobody coming up here. What can I talk about? They done heard that before. They done heard that precept before. They ain't heard it from you. They haven't heard it from you. That's the problem. They haven't heard it from you. They ain't got a garment from you. They got that garment. They done made that garment.
Yeah.
But they haven't got it from you. That's what the Lord looking for. He looking for you. Because he put it in you. He put the word in you. He equipped your hands. You know, but you want to let your mind jam you up. They done heard that before. You know, stop letting Satan jam you up, man. And afflict your soul. Get them demons off of you. You know. So the Lord said in Romans 12:1, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of Most High God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice. Holy. Sometimes you got to be separated, man. You got to be separate, you know. Everybody else on a Friday night might be freaking off. Video games. They ain't got to worry about going to work the next day.
And the club.
Yeah, the club. Some people just automatically off work, you know. But you and your 7 household, you got to strive to get off work. It ain't easy for everybody, man. Every Saturday, you got to let your job know. You got to fight with your job every Saturday. Give me that paperwork. I need off. I got to teach. Put it on the table the next day. You ain't approved it yet. You know. Some people it might be easy in this walk. But you got other Israelites. They got to look for another job. They hunting. Which job gonna let me off? Man, I ain't got too much money. I ain't got too much money in my 401. I only got $100 left. I got to pay that light bill. Lord, have mercy on me, Lord. I got 5 kids, Lord. You see what I'm going through. You know I want to keep the Sabbath, Lord. You know I want to be on them corners, Lord. You know I'm tired of working them 12 hours with them Edomites, Lord. You know, Lord, open up a door for me, Lord. And he might not answer your prayer. Might not. Might not answer your prayer. Because he wants you to keep fighting. That's what's keeping you in this thing. Fighting. You know, fighting like David. Fighting like Paul. Fighting like Peter. You know, fighting like Yahushua, man. Yahushua had a fight. Them Pharisees, man. You don't think Yahushua was sick of them Pharisees? You know, he called them vipers. He looked them dead in their eyes and called them vipers. You generation of vipers. You know, that's how on fire you got to be for the Most High, man. You just fighting. You ain't giving up. You know, she tried to take my kids away. Man, they gonna keep these feast days. You know. My brother think he can kind of just lead camp. Man, I'm gonna let him know. You know, I'm gonna give him a word. I'm gonna exhort him. You know, stop letting your brother walk away, man. Call your brother. You know. Man, I don't want to get on his nerves. Call your brother. You know, man, I don't want to tell my mama she got to stop cooking on. You better tell your mama. Because Yahushua said those that deny me in front of men, I will deny them in front of my Father. You know. So, hey, gotta wind down. Romans 12:1. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of Most High God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto Most High God, which is a reasonable service. So, hey, look, it's my reasonable service to spend all night doing this video, as well as this brother. And then got to come back out here later on today, Saturday. Got to do it all over again, you know. It's a woman's reasonable service to take care of them children, sew them garments, you know, make sure her house is in order. If she ain't got no man, make sure she abstain away from fornication. Make sure she abstain away from getting bounced around like a basketball, you know. One night stand this man, you know. One unity camp this man, you know. One lesson with this man, you know. One breakdown with that man, you know. You got to stop getting bounced around, you know, like a balloon. This ain't the old days playing keep it up like we used to do back in the old days. You hit the balloon, see who can keep it up. If it hit the ground, you gotta get out. You know. A lot of sisters, they jammed up too. You know, sisters ain't exempt. Sisters need to be fasting too. You know. And the truth, and you had 7 husbands. How is that being holy? You done got 7 different breakdowns from 7 different men. You know, I can't even name you 7 camps right now. But a woman somewhere has been in 7 camps with 7 different men. You know. And everybody told her a different breakdown on Job, a different breakdown on Revelation. You know, and she don't know what's the next move now. You know. And then somewhere she gonna make a YouTube video. My thing about the Hebrew Israelites is this, you know. So we need fasting. We need afflicting our souls, man. You know. So let's wind down. Let's get Matthew 17 real quick, because I quoted it earlier. Matthew 17. And the brothers not exempt too. Some brothers, hey, they done had 20 wives in this truth, man. And don't know where none of them is. Which is a demon too. So this is Matthew chapter 17 and verse 20. Now it says, and Yahweh said unto them, because of your unbelief, for verily I say unto you, if ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. Howbeit this kind goeth not out, but by prayer and fasting. So we need prayer, man. We need fasting. We need the Lord to hear our prayers and to hold it on the high regard so we can be cleansed. Let's get Psalms real quick. The book of Psalms. You got something, King? This is the book of Psalms, chapter 66. And I'm going to start at verse 18. The book of Psalms 66 and verse 18, and it reads, it says, Thou hast ascended, like Psalm 66 and 18. It says, if I regard iniquity in my heart, the Lord will not hear me. But verily, Most High God had heard me. He had attended to the voice of my prayer. So that's what we want. We want the Lord to hear our prayer. You know, don't go into the Day of Atonement. Don't fast, you know, just to make yourself feel complete. You know, you did a video today. You read your chapter today. You read 3 chapters. You read 4 chapters, you know. And now you just turn everything off and you just go back in the world. And come back the next day and do it all over again. And make yourself feel like you done something. You know. That's wicked. That's an evil mind. That's an evil spirit. So the Lord said, Psalm 66 and 18 by David, if I regard iniquity in my heart, the Lord will not hear me. So the Lord, based on your mindset, based on your interior, your ulterior motives, you know, you could put a gas in a car. That don't mean it's gonna run. You know. What about the battery? What about your brakes? You know. What about your steering fluid? You know, just because you got gas in it don't mean it's gonna go forward. You know. Just because you praying, that don't mean the Lord gonna hear it. Your mind gotta be right. You know, your spirit gotta be right. You know, how you treating other Israelites? How you treating people that don't know about the truth? You know, a lot of Israelites ain't thinking about that. They say, well, they in the Christian church. They don't F them, man. You know, they in the Christian church. They don't matter because they black. You know, F them, man. Hey, didn't you used to be in the church. The Lord brought you out of the church. You got to pray the Lord bring them out. If not, hey, they ain't their elect. Keep it moving. You know, man, he shaved his beard, man. The Lord ain't dealing with him. Like, ain't no way the Lord dealing with him. He shaved his beard. You know, didn't you used to shave your beard before you went out with that woman? She said she like when I cut this off. You know, used to go all out for these women. Now you overly mighty. Now you ain't regarding your brother because he shaved his beard. Won't you tell him? But hey, go to Leviticus 19. Show him, brother. You know, if you ain't, hey, look, I said it to Jake the other day. If you in somebody's way, the only way you should be in somebody's way is if you helping them. That's it. If you ain't helping them, get out of their way. If you ain't trying to show them that they're indoctrinated, get out of the way. If you ain't trying to show them they worship idols, get out of the way. If you ain't trying to show them who they are and what they need to be knowing, get out of the way. You know, let another brother teach. You know, if you don't care about their health, get out of the kitchen. Don't nobody care about you being a chef. That brother is swollen in the ankles. Why are you giving him pork? He only got one kidney. Why are you telling him to go get some liquor? He barely can keep his eyes open because he got black spots and bags under his eyes. You see signs of his body breaking down. Why are you telling him let's go to Burger King? You know, we need to do better, Israel, and we need to regard this Day of Atonement, you know. So we're going to wind down through the spirit of power of Yahweh Shem Yahweh with Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 12. Lord willing, this was edifying to you. All praise to Yahweh Shem Yahweh. This is the book of Jeremiah chapter 8 and verse 12, and it reads, it says, were they ashamed when they had committed abomination? Nay, they were not at all ashamed, neither could they blush. Therefore shall they fall among them that fall. In the time of their visitation, they shall be cast down, said the Lord Yahweh. So if you ain't ashamed, hey, shame on you, because there's going to come a time where the Lord going to cast you down. Lord willing, you keep this Sabbath day to the best of your ability. Judges 5 and 11, rehearsing the righteous acts. And Lord willing, if you ain't already kept the Day of Atonement, Lord willing, you keep it mighty to the best of your ability as well. Hey, we living in the last days. The Most High ain't nothing to play with. This ain't no game. This ain't no trend. This ain't no fab. It's the real deal, man. We living in the last days. Lord willing, this is edifying to you, fisherman for Zion, Brother Hosea.
Brother Joel.
All praises to Yahweh by Shem Yahweh Mashiach. Peace and blessings to you. You don't count this as a light thing to do. Call Yahweh by Shem Yahweh Mashiach. Shalom.